Okay, let's talk about speed. So speed basically being how fast we swing the club as we're coming through the golf ball, as we're hitting the golf ball. Now, when we're talking about speed, ultimately we're talking about distance control. Distance control is the full concoction of things that determines how far the ball is going to travel. Speed is one of those elements that are affected in distance control. Whether we knew it or not, up to this point, we've already talked about a lot of those elements. For example, low point is going to play a big factor in our distance control and how far we hit the golf ball. If we're hitting the ball thin because our low point's off, the ball's not going to travel as far. If we're hitting the ball fat, obviously the ball's not going to travel as far, so our distance control is getting off. So if our low point's getting off, that's going to alter our contact, and that's going to change our distance. Same thing with club face. The more we tend to have the club face be open, the less distance we're normally going to have. Now it's relative to our path, because I could have an open face and hit a draw, and that kind of changes the equation. But all things being equal, the more the face I have, the more I have the face be open compared to normal, the ball is going to travel shorter. When I get the face more closed than normal, the ball is going to travel a further distance. So face is going to affect our distance as well. Same thing with path. If we have our path in relationship to our face to hit a fade, well, a fade is going to travel shorter than when I have my path be more into out and I'm hitting a draw. So fades tend to go shorter, draws tend to go further because they change our spin, and that's changing our distance as well. So then the final thing we also talked about in the fundamentals is contact. When we hit the ball in the dead middle of the club face, hitting the ball dead flush in the middle is going to be the fastest the ball can travel off of it. If we start to hit it towards the toe or towards the heel, we start to hit it lower on the face, we're going to lose speed. If we hit it high on the face with wedges and with irons, we're also going to lose speed. If we hit it high on the face with a hybrid wood or a driver, or at least a little high on the face, we might gain speed because the ball is launching higher and has less spin. So we might actually have the ball travel at a faster speed on those. So where we're contacting the ball in the club face, anytime it deviates away from the middle, it's either going to lose speed in 8 or 9 times out of 10 instances, or when we're hitting hybrid woods or driver, if we hit higher in the face, the ball is going to come off faster. So the speed is changing based on where we contact on the club face. And if our ball speed is changing from our contact, that's going to affect our distance control. So everything we've talked about up to this point are all elements that are going to affect our distance control. But the one we're going to focus on now is going to be speed. Speed is really more of a skill to learn than anything. The other ones are more foundational, fundamental things to learn just to have the ability to hit good shots. Once we have the ability to hit good shots, meaning we're hitting on the club face, it's getting up in the air, we're squaring up our face, we're having the ball travel in the direction we want, speed is basically the final element that's going to help us control the distance of how far the ball is going. So we're always trying to control our speed, again, to control our distance. Technically, even though all of those things affect our distance control is comprised of 4 things, with the exception of elements. If we have something like cold weather, hot weather, we're at altitude, we have rain, it's windy, we have the ball in the rough and we're going to chunk it, or maybe the ball's sitting up and we're going to have a fly or lie. Taking out exceptional situations and elements like that, if we were hitting on a range mat or something very consistent, if we're hitting in a place that has no elements involved, well, basically, distance control is comprised of 4 things. We have the loft of the club we're using. That's both the club we're choosing, whether we're hitting a 7-iron or a 6-iron or a 5-iron. So we have the natural loft of the club we're using. We also have, are we adding loft when we hit it, or are we de-lofting the club? All things being equal, if we're a player who scoops the golf ball and adds more loft, well, adding more loft is going to make the ball travel shorter. If we're a player who leans the shaft forward and we start to de-loft the club, that's taking our 7-iron and turning it into a 6-iron or a 5-iron or a 4-iron, and that de-lofting is going to make the ball travel further. So the combination of the club we choose and how much we lean the shaft forward is going to affect our overall loft, and that's going to affect how far the ball goes. Now, the cool thing about that is when we start to change our shaft lean, most people go from here one shot to here on the next one. Most people return with the same shaft lean basically from shot to shot to shot. So all you need to understand is this. Understand how far your ball travels normally for each club. If you hit a full 7-iron, understand that it goes however far it goes. Maybe for you it's 160 yards. When you hit a full 5-iron, understand how far that goes. When you hit a full wedge, whatever the club is, understand how far each club travels when you hit it full and when you hit it solid. That's going to let you choose a club for the situation at hand. Again, if you had that 160-yard shot, it's probably a perfect 7-iron for you. But if it's 163 yards, all of a sudden you got to ask yourself the question, am I going to try and get the extra 3 yards out of the 7 iron, or am I going to step up to the 6 iron and try and hit it a little bit softer? That way I have enough club to reach the hole, and all I need to do is take off a little bit of speed, and now my distance is correct. So the first tool you have for distance control is going to be the club you choose, the loft you have. The other elements that are affecting your distance control is going to be loft, the length of your swing, the speed of your swing, and the contact on the club face. What we're going to focus on in this video is the length of your swing and the speed of your swing, because those two things are interconnected. The longer we swing, the more potential speed I can swing the club with, and the shorter I swing, the less potential speed I can swing the club with. So the length of the swing is always going to correlate to how fast or how much potential we can have in terms of swinging the club fast. And the other thing about swinging the club fast is just how fast are we physically able to force the club through space, whether it's with our hands and arms, whether it's with our release, whether it's how our body's pushing off the ground. That's the other part that's going to affect our speed aside from the length of our swing. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. The other part to distance control is our contact. Where we contact the ball in the club face is going to affect our distance. The short version on this, again, is basically this. If we hit the ball in the middle of the club face, the ball is going to go the distance we want it to go, or the distance we predict it's going to go. Anytime we miss the middle of the club face, the ball is going to travel shorter. The only exception to that rule, again, is when we hit hybrids, woods, or driver. If we hit the ball a little bit high in the face, the ball is probably going to go a little bit further than we normally expect it to. So basically, in almost all instances, whenever we miss the middle of the club face, the ball is going to go shorter, and it also might travel more sideways, but the ball is going to probably go shorter when we don't hit it solid on the face. We don't hit in the same part of the club face that we're expecting to hit it on. So knowing that, we basically want to understand our loft and our contact, we're hoping to kind of have be gimmies for us. If our swing technique is decent, we have good control of our low point, we have good control of our face, and good control of our path. Well, if we have good control of those three things, we're probably going to make good contact with the golf ball. Contact is only a byproduct of good low point, good face, and good path. There are other things that can technically get off, but if we have those things be very consistent, it's very likely we're going to make good contact on the club face. So if we're making good contact, we can kind of take that one as a gimme. We don't have to worry about that one too much. If our contact is off, well, we have something bigger in terms of distance control we need to worry about than our speed of our swing. We better go back and look at our technique, get our low point face, get our path better, look at our actual technique and what we need to change to make those things better. And once those things get better, what's going to happen? Our contact's going to get better. Once our contact gets better, our ball is going to travel more the distance we expect it to. And then all of a sudden now we can get back in the realm of trying to control our distance because of the speed of our swing. So if distance control gets off, the first place you should be looking is, am I making solid contact or not? And if you're not making solid contact, fix those things. If you are making solid contact, now it becomes a game of, okay, can I control my speed? There's other things that can control distance as well. We'll talk about them a little bit. But basically it becomes a game of, can I control my club head speed? So I think the best way to learn this is to first understand what are the ways we can create a longer swing, because the longer we can swing, the more potential speed we can create. And if we understand the elements that can create a longer swing, we also understand the elements that can limit how far we turn or how long our swing gets, and that can create a shorter swing. Again, a shorter swing is going to limit how fast we can swing. It's going to slow the club head down. From there, we can talk about different ways to control our distance or control our speed. So first off, if we want to create the maximum potential length of our swing that we can have, which is going to increase the potential speed that we can have, here's what we have going on. The more we can get our body to turn in the backswing, whether it's with our knees, our hips, our upper body, or our head, the more we can get our body to start turning in the backswing in this direction, the further the club can travel back. So those elements involve letting the knee release in, letting the legs rotate away from the target, letting the lead knee flex and the trail leg extend as we go back, physically trying to let the hips turn themselves, physically allowing the upper body to try and turn itself, trying to get the spine to have some extension because we can get a little bit more range of motion out of it that way, letting the arm move into abduction this way and letting the shoulder retract back a little bit in this direction because that's going to make our upper body have a bigger range of motion over here. Letting our head have some tilt and turn, kind of like Jack Nicklaus did at Address, doing those things are going to let our upper body turn more as well. Those are all tools. Or even one more, we can let the lead heel release off the ground versus keeping it more planted. We can do all or any one of those things to create a longer swing with our body. We also have things with our hands and arms. We have how much the lead arm is spreading into adduction across the chest. We have how much the trail arm is spreading towards the side of our body into abduction this way. So basically the arm is moving across the body in this direction. How much the hands and arms are lifting up. The more they lift up, the more potential speed we can create. The more we get the arms to have bending, if you watch, lets the club travel a further direction. The more we let the wrists hinge, the more the club can travel as we go back. So any one of those things is going to create a longer and bigger backswing, which creates more potential speed. Now, I'm not saying you should be doing all of those things necessarily, not unless you're going to be a long drive player. But any one of those things, all of those things can create a longer swing. So understanding that, you now have tools if you want to create more speed to do that. If you want to limit your speed, the first way you can do it is by having a shorter swing. You can say, okay, I don't want to release this knee way in. Maybe I'm going to keep my knee more out. That's going to limit my hip turn. Maybe I'm going to intentionally not try to turn the hips so much. Maybe I'm going to keep the hips a little bit more still. Maybe I'm not going to try and turn my upper body so much. Maybe I'm not going to spread that arm back and retract the shoulder. Instead, I'm going to keep everything more in front of me. Maybe I'm not going to let my head tilt and turn. All those things will limit your turn. Again, that's your prerogative if that's what you want to do. Same thing with the arms. Maybe I don't want the arm to spread way to the side of my body. Maybe I don't want my arm getting narrow. Maybe I don't want a lot of wrist hinge. Maybe I want to be much more like Steve Stricker at the top of my swing over in this direction because you feel like it gives you more control. Whatever the reason is, that's up to you. But by limiting those elements, you can slow down your speed. So now you have tools to increase your speed. Now you have tools to decrease your speed. Now, that's going to affect your technique of your swing. Now, whatever your technique is, the other thing you can do is say, okay, another way I could look at this is I could look at this as a percentage system. Let's say my normal backswing goes right to here. This is 100% backswing. Me not trying to go more or less. This is just what I always get to on a normal swing. Well, from there we can say, okay, if that's 100%, you could take off speed or length by saying, okay, let me only go back instead of 100%, let me go back to 90% or 80% or 70% or 60% in my backswing and make it shorter. By having a shorter percentage of swing, that's going to make everything turn shorter, both the arms and the body, and that's going to slow your speed down. Or perhaps you don't want to do it by limiting how far the club is traveling and how much you're turning. Maybe you always like to have a full swing no matter what you do, but maybe instead of swinging fast at full speed as you're coming through, maybe you want to just swing slower as you're coming through. So maybe you still keep that same 100% backswing, but the speed or the intensity you're swinging at is at 90% or 80 or 70 or 60%. By slowing down the physical speed itself and the intensity of your speed, that can take off distance as well. And obviously, if you're trying to swing faster with more intensity, that's going to ramp up your speed. So those are tools you have to change the length of your swing and to change the speed of your swing. Another thing people will do is people will choke up. If I took a 7-iron here and I choked up 2 inches, well, guess what? I just turned this club now into a pitching wedge in terms of length, and I can't swing a pitching wedge as fast as a 7-iron. Why? Because the pitching wedge is 1.5 inches, 2 inches shorter than a 7-iron, and a shorter club will never be as swung as fast as a long club. So by making our club effectively shorter by choking up, we can swing 1, 2, 3 miles per hour slower, which is going to take off some distance. Now that ball's probably going to come off a little bit lower, but we can take off some distance by choking up on the club. So all those things are going to affect the length of our swing and the speed of our swing, and that's going to ultimately affect how far the ball is going to travel. So when we talk about speed, those are different tools you have to affect the length and the speed of your swing. Now, in terms of distance control, just because I don't want to leave it as an open loop, I want to kind of close the subject a little bit. Distance control isn't just about length of swing and speed of swing. There are other people who control distance a little bit different way. For example, look at Tiger Woods. He's notorious for saying, I control my distance with my trajectory. When I have my fall through finish very low, I bring the trajectory down, and when I hit it lower, the ball travels shorter. When he finishes high, he brings the trajectory up as well, and that's what he does when he wants to hit the ball further. So he will change his fall through, and he will change the height of his golf ball to change the distance it's going to travel. Some people will also do it through curvature. As you probably know, the more we get the ball to pull or the more we get the ball to draw, the ball travels further. When we hit a push or we hit more of a slice, the ball travels shorter. So some people, when they want to get a little more distance out of it, will hit a draw with a club to make it travel further. Or when they want to take off distance, they'll hit more of a cut or maybe even more of a slice if they want to take off a lot of distance, and that curvature will make the ball travel shorter. So they don't necessarily have to change the length of their swing or the speed of their swing. They might change the curvature and the spin on the golf ball to control their distance. The point being is you have tools at your disposal. But what I'm trying to really correlate to you in this video is this. We first need to make sure we have good contact. We need our low point, face, and path to be good so we can make solid contact on the club face as consistently as possible. The more consistent our contact can be, the more predictable our distance is going to be. From there, if we can basically make contact a gimme, or we can say we do it so often that we don't have to worry too much about it, well, basically that leaves three elements. That leaves our loft, aka the club we're choosing, which again, after a while, is not going to be too hard. If you understand you hit your 7-iron 160 yards, well, you're always going to be able to get one or two, maybe three clubs at most that you're going to be able to choose from when you're hitting a shot. Normally, it's going to be a very easy choice. You're only going to have one club. It's really only when it gets windy or tricky that we're going to have a selection of clubs we're going to have to hit from. But basically, it comes down to if I know my yardages, I basically choose the club I want to hit, and that one's kind of taken off the board as well. Which basically means distance control at that point is dictated by two things. We'll say it's a couple more, but really by two things. The length of our swing or the speed of our swing. Now again, we can change the trajectory or our curvature because that's going to affect our distance as well. But otherwise, it's basically two things. How long are we swinging or how fast are we swinging? And if we can learn to control the length of our swing, the speed of our swing, ultimately we learn to control the distance the ball is going to travel. So that's why speed is so important. It's not just how fast am I able to swing, which everybody wants to swing faster, who doesn't want to hit the ball further. But most importantly, because golf is a game of precision, not just power, precision is the bigger element there. The ability to control our length, control our speed so we can control our distance is paramount if we're going to be a good golfer.